big thing for me. So, yeah, it's called Serverless Forum is powered by Algolia search, and I'll go into a lot more detail. But first, you can find me on Twitter, Coding at Codeface. I really, really appreciate the feedback on the talk and on the forums themselves. You know, give us your ideas and your thoughts on how we can do things better and all that kind of stuff, because we really, that defines our requirements essentially for how we do things at Cloud Guru. So, I'm a software engineer at Cloud Guru. I was previously a .NET dev. It was great to see the Azure talk because I've kind of been in the AWS space and really inside that, and I haven't really looked outside. So it's good to see that Azure sort of got its own thing going as well. And they're a little bit behind, but it's great to see. But they're getting there. They're having the struggles that we were having like a year ago. And that's fantastic because it's like everyone's getting on board with this thing, and that's great for all of us because we're all serverless, right? I'm a JS dev now, JavaScript. Also a millennial, which is apparently a bad thing. I've read a lot about it. It's just like the worst thing ever. I'm also a photographer. That's my photo. I really like it. So a little bit about us, if you don't know us already. We're a cloud training company. We provide certification training as well as deep dive training to hundreds of thousands of engineers around the world who are trying to learn, at the moment particularly AWS. And we have a serverless, why is my thing not working?
It's not. Yep.
So we have a serverless, completely serverless training platform which we built really, really quickly. Well, Sam built really, really quickly, and I sort of joined up.
And now you have
I just take all the credit for it. So.
Now you have to fix it.
And now, yeah, exactly. All
You
the parts I have to fix.
All the tech debt is mine.
Yeah. It works on lots of things. I just stole all of Sam's slides, so. I want to tell you a bit of a serverless story. I want to call it a story because, as all of you are kind of finding out, it's greenfield stuff. You're sorting your problems out yourself in a lot of ways. You're given the base tooling from your vendor, and there's just so many problems that have to be solved. The CI, your CD, how you're going to manage multiple environments, all sorts of different problems. And it's this thing. If this was like a traditional .NET web app, we could have built a forum in a month or something like that. But it took us 4 or 5 months because we went through 4 iterations of solving problems and doing it one way and going, that is just absolutely terrible. Let's change it. Let's do it a different way. So yeah, it really is a story, and I want to share it with you. So I had to build a serverless forum a year ago. I don't have really complex diagrams because I'm short attention span. I can't sit in front of a computer for too long doing diagrams. I can only code this. But this is basically what it looked like when we launched the site. And we launched with a forum. We wanted to make sure that we had a community behind our training platform. Pretty simple. Obviously, it's more complex in reality, but API gateway has our REST API endpoints. We put the request through to a number of Lambda functions. We never went more than one Lambda deep, as in we never lost that context, that original context from API gateway. So it's just called Lambda. Lambda does stuff, goes back to API gateway. You don't lose that context. On the actual front end, you see the loading bar. If you're doing submit a post, you see a loading bar, and when it finishes, all the Lambda functions are finished. So the Lambda function would go and chuck the data in Firebase. So if you don't know what Firebase is, it's a document database which is currently owned by Google. It wasn't owned by Google when we started. That's how things go. It's relatively simple in terms of what it can do, but it does have some really cool features which were very, very attractive at the start. One of them is that we can actually bind directly to data in Firebase, and as people are changing that data, it actually pushes updates out, and that's direct to the browser. So the browser can bind to things. And that's awesome because we don't have to write code to like update the browser, right? It's free code, free functionality. So Lambda function pushes data to it, and then yeah, we get the whole sort of round trip thing going. Firebase has some really basic querying capabilities. I say really basic because when I think about like what do you want out of a database, I think like well, a relational database has all the bells and whistles. You can do everything you want. You know, it might not be fast in certain situations, but you can sort of get around that. You know, you set up your indexes. Talking to one from this guy. Yeah. Firebase only really lets you sort of get all the data at a location and do some really basic sorting or filtering, I guess, but not really. It's if you want to do anything with complexity, you have to do things, which I'll talk about. Dirty things. So what's the problem, right? Now none of you should know what this is because you're all serverless. This is SQL of some sort. It might be wrong. I didn't put it through like a SQL monitor or anything like that, but yeah, you know what I mean. You know, so if you want to do this, you know, this is what you would do if you had a relational database with SQL. So you want to select, say, the top 10 questions where you know that question was relating to a specific course in our system, and it also had a tag EC2. Then we want to order it by the number of votes because we want to see the most popular posts with those query parameters, and then also order it by modified tag, so that we're getting sort of things that are active at the moment getting pushed up to the top. Right? So how do you do that in a document database? Right? So document database denormalization. So what we do is we make lots and lots of copies of our data, and we key it by different fields that we want to query it by. So I have this is literally a screenshot of our database for the old discussions sort of setup. So we have like the original data is in a location called data. It has everything there. So every single field like that you want for a question would be there. So it'd be like the title, the discussion, the author, all that kind of stuff, right? And then we say, well, sometimes we want to just get all the questions by a particular user. Okay? So what we have to do is that when we save that data, we have to then go, okay, who's the author? All right, let's go into the by user one as well, create an entry for the user ID and put some subset of the data there that we want to query by, so that when we come back later and when we do our reads, we can do it the way we want. And we do that for every situation that we need to handle in the front end. So by calls, that's happening. So, because we don't store we don't want to store all the data in our denormalized locations. We store our main sort of source of truth data in data, and then we just store like what we need to be able to do sorting and stuff. So what we would do is we would query this one first, and that would get us a list of IDs, and then we would come through to data and we would grab the actual original data that we want to use in the front end. So essentially we're doing n+1 queries. So we do a query where we sort and all that, and then we do a number of queries to get the actual data. So yeah, that's how we sort of had to do it before. This is what it looks like in code. It's terrible, right? It's pretty gross. This is Firebase code, so you like sort of traverse down there, document tree, .child, etc. And this is, unsurprisingly, probably, do you think this would be fast? I mean, it was really fast when we started, because we had like nothing in the database. And I forgot to mention this, we're now up to over 140,000 students, and our forums are like so active right now, and this was just getting worse and worse every day. So, we needed a solution, and we knew that we needed a solution to this like 6 months ago. And that's why we started building a new forums. Lots of situations. I've got a lot of, I just searched like denormalization memes on this, and that's what I got, like, what? Okay.
How did it even exist? So.
Yeah.
You search for denormalization memes.
Yeah. So it doesn't look very different, but this is the 2017 edition of our forums. We've literally just added one thing here from an architectural point of view. But actually, a lot of it's changed. We've fully rewritten and restructured our Lambda functions, and this is actually an interesting going back to the previous talks point around why wouldn't you say call a second or a third Lambda, or sorry, function in Azure, but same thing with Lambda, and I guess fully microservice out your functionality, business logic, so that you sort of siloed them, right? So Sam pointed this out, but we actually tried to do that. So we had situations where we were doing using SNS to say all right, a question's being posted. Now I just tell an SNS topic, questions being posted, and then there would be a number of Lambda functions which would react to that, and they would do different things, like for example, emailing you, or actually say an answer, for example. So if an answer is posted, we would email the question author to tell them that someone's answered their question, right? We would also do a whole lot of other stuff, like updating the user's reputation in the system and doing all the denormalizations and all that kind of stuff, as well as we have to pre-render our site so it looks good and people share links, and we have to there's a whole bunch of stuff that has to happen. So we actually said, and we tried that, and it was just an absolute pain to debug offline because we use Serverless framework for everything, and there was no sort of built-in way for you to do things in that sort of fashion. I know there's ways to run your Lambda functions offline, but it's just the one function. If you use an SNS API within your function itself, you would have to mock that and then capture the request and then spin up another function, and then how do you do all that? We just didn't have time to solve that problem. So in the end, what we ended up doing was we said, you know what, it's good enough if we write node libraries and we just reuse them. And it was actually a really sensible decision because our whole coding style and workflow now is just so quick. We have really tiny handlers, and all I do is just import in some node function, a node library, and we're using ES6 classes now to do that. And it just calls a function, and one particular library might be called by 4 or 5 Lambda functions, and we only have to update the one location. So we don't have any problems when we go through timeouts or anything like that either. So we've added in Algolia. So Algolia is amazing. I've got a lot on that in the next slide. Algolia is a search service, so I think I might leave that for the sec. We added a step where we reindex our functions, so we just update Algolia with what? We reindex. We have reindexing functions in Lambda, that actually index our forum data. So that's an extra step that we've added. Everything else is essentially the same. Firebase is still our source of truth. We don't want Algolia to be our source of truth because it's really just like a CQRS location. We want to be able to rebuild it at any time. And we still bind to Firebase on the actual thread viewing page, because if you're on that page and someone posts an answer or uploads something, we still want to see that live. And we don't have any performance issues on that page because there's not that much data there. We already know what the thread is. So it's not too bad. Okay, cool. Algolia, this is the big thing. So can anyone find the Easter egg in that? I'm going to talk and you can find the Easter egg and then you can let me know. Yep. So apply Algolia search liberally is the takeaway for the last 5 months for me. We got rid of a lot of denormalizations from Firebase. Some still exist, unfortunately, but the majority of them are gone. And that functionality now sort of applies using Algolia search. Because Algolia search gives us sort of what we would have if we had a relational database, but we hate them, so we just add Algolia search. Right? So we have filters, which are essentially where clauses. We have facets, which are kind of like where clauses, but you have to predefine them because you say, I'm going to query it all the time like this, and they go, oh, that's good to know. We'll make sure that we save it somewhere in a way that it's easy to query it like that. And then we have ranking, so sorting but a lot cooler. It's got a lot of features in it, and it's like search, so it's got awesome search rankings sort of stuff there. We can do free text search now. Our old forums didn't search for things, like you couldn't go, I wanted to know about running a static website on S3 and using CloudFront and all that kind of stuff. So now we can do that. And it has a lot more features which I'll cover later, but these are the main ones that we used. Okay, that's I will do a demo, but I want to put these ones up first just because there's some things that relate to what I'm talking about. So in this situation, we're on the Certified Developer Associate course discussion page. We want to get all the popular threads. You don't know this, but we actually store all our questions and our answers in the same index for reasons. And so that's why we have a facet type of question. So we've got facet type of question, and we've also got the room ID of the, it should be the certified developer. Oh, no, that's right, yeah, CDO room. So, and then we want to rank first by vote time, so on the most popular posts, and then we rank by the descending created timestamp. So that's essentially the same thing that we were doing earlier, minus the tags bit. We haven't got that here. And then we've added the free text search, and Algolia is like, we discovered this like months into using it that it could do this, and it's just so amazing. So you can actually tell it like, if someone searches something and you find a match, wrap the matching term in some arbitrary tags that I tell you, right? So it could be like markdown tags or HTML tags. So we've just said, well, okay, chuck a spanner around it with a class. And then that lets us do this. It's awesome.
Yeah, all listening-based things like you do.
Yeah.
It comes straight out of listening.
Cool. I've never used anything before Algolia, so.
Oh, cool.
There you go. And then we actually have the same data, but we want to query it in different ways. And obviously, if you're using a search, then you have to define like, how do you want this thing ranked, right? So, the obvious thing, and this is actually what we started doing, we had like 3 different indexes with different settings on ranking. And then we would, every time the Lambda function had to sort of go and create data in an index, it would sort of create it in one and then go and create it another and create it another. And Algolia has a feature where you can just replicate it, which we found out later. Because we don't read documentation afterwards. And so we just have a primary, which is the newest threads, and then it goes and creates 2 other ones which have different settings on them for ranking that it'll just automatically go and send them to. It does it straight away, so it's very, very cool. So I don't know if other search services have that because I don't use them. Other awesome and cool features of Algolia. They have title ranking, search rank, which I assume is in everything else. Pagination, which I also assume is in everything else. A lot of customizable search settings, so you can do like typo tolerance and all that kind of stuff. You can tell it, if you don't find any matches, start sort of cutting words off your search queries so that it might match later. Has synonyms, so you can go in there and say, yeah, source and code and source code are all the same thing, so that if someone searches for one, they get all. It has a distinct attribute. This is something that we sort of should have been using, but we never ended up doing it. So you can, obviously you can ask for a distinct thing, but there's actually a way that you can use it to get around some tough situations. I don't actually have an example, but I promise that there are examples. I'll think about it, promise you examples. A lot of search analytics as well, so we already like that.
So an example of distinct. So if you want to search for, let's say, the most recent post from a particular person, you can query for all posts, but you say, I want the user ID to be distinct, and you order by time, and it'll always bring you back. It'll never bring you a result for that person more than once. So if you then order by time, you're always getting the most distinct post from each individual person.
Yeah.
But if a person has 10,000 posts, you're only getting one for that person. So you can set distinct on any field.
Yeah.
So it's quite powerful.
Yeah, search analytics, so we can actually see like where are people searching from and that kind of stuff. Query types, the time it takes to actually resolve queries, and average times. We know that it takes around, I think, on average 19 milliseconds to resolve 90% of our queries or something like that. So that's just good to know. It also tells you trends, like, you know, are you getting more and more queries, that kind of stuff. You can rate them in IPs and you get query stats.
Hey Dan, do you talk about a distributed search network?
No.
Because that, like, to me, that's one of the coolest things about Algolia. So Algolia is a lot like Firebase in that the browsers, the users' browsers directly bind to Algolia. So when a user hits our site to search for forums, they're not going through, they're not calling one of our Lambda functions to say, hey, please give me the top results. They query it direct to Algolia. So they say, Algolia, give me the top results for this forum room. And Algolia have a distributed search network. So when you go into the Algolia dashboard, you say, and it costs you money, but you say they've got like 30 different locations around the world and they'll automatically replicate your search index out to the locations that you choose. So we have like one in the US, one in Europe, one in India, one in Australia, and we map it exactly to the makeup of our customer base. So the moment you enable that, they automatically replicate. So if a user loads the site, we don't have to do anything, they load the site from, say, Sydney, their browser talks directly to Algolia's server in Sydney, and they get, so it's like what is it? It's like 2 to 20 millisecond response time. So it's just loads like that. It's like really quick, really fast.
So CDN effectively, is it?
Yeah, it's a CDN for search.
Yes. Yeah.
It's really cool. It costs you'll pay like $100 or $200 per month per location that you add because they now replicate every index to all those locations. But man, the performance, like the user experience, is awesome. It just load, and especially in serverless, if you're building single page apps that load without data, there's always that lag where they have to go, once they load in your browser, they've got to go get the data. But with Algolia, it doesn't even feel like it's loading data. You know, it feels like it's been baked into the HTML as you load it.
Yeah, it's super fast. So one more slide, and then I want to give a demo. So these are things that we're gonna, one of the things that we were limited by, in our old forums was, we have a lot of people asking for features, mods, not mod tools. People want better sort of notifications. Like I want to be able to subscribe to a room or subscribe to a thread and then get like digests and things like that. So we found that very challenging because we're restricted in a lot of ways by our data and how it's stored. So if we wanted to remove a whole bunch of our forum data in the old Firebase system and have like new denormalizations, we would have to have this whole sort of process of setting up the denormalization and migration scripts and all that kind of stuff, and then having features that use that. So the really great thing about Algolia is that we no longer have those denormalizations. So we can change our the way that Algolia is set up to allow us to search it. And in most situations, we can just continue using the existing indexes. So we can just say like, well, from now on, I actually also want to be able to search with a facet of, like the author ID or something like that. And we can just change the settings in Algolia. We don't have to go and push all the data up again. It just automatically sort of reshuffles everything and makes sure that it's going to work like that. So now that we have that, we can go and build all these features that everyone's wanted for some. So it's really enabled us to sort of move away from that old system. So I'm going to give you a bit of a demo.
I feel the pressure now. I've told you how fast it is.
Well, it's on Algolia now, right?
Yeah, that's it. Not our fault. How good's the Wi-Fi here?
This is my mobile Wi-Fi.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so forget everything you said.
Yeah, forget it all. It's really slow.
So we've added this kind of thing as well to our front page. We had something like this before, but we've added rooms into the forum. We didn't have rooms as such before. We could kind of like filter questions by a course, but we said, well, not everything is course related anymore. We have people with serverless questions. We don't have like a a specific serverless course or anything like that. So let's have.
We'll soon.
There
is seven. It's coming out.
Definitely going to have that.
3 weeks. 3 weeks.
But we still want to have like a general serverless room. You know. So this is great because we've just we're just taking the existing data and we're querying it exactly the same way as we would if we were on the main page of the discussion forum. We just say, well, only give me 4 of them, and I only want certain sort of fields from that. So this is live. This updates as data updates across the across the forums. So we've got that, and then a main discussion forum. This is
Did I put that one?
Oh yeah. Yeah, this is actually a staging site, which has a lot of data in it, so it's fine. But yeah, so we've got this new fabulous homepage. Feel free to give us feedback on this. So now we can have our general rooms and we can have our course-related rooms, and in here we can. There's a lot of test data, but let's go to an actual. Let's go to an actual room that has a lot of data in it. Well, that was way too quick that I double-clicked accidentally. So that's actually gone to Algolia and come back and populated the screen like very, very quickly. And if we do that again, like that's literally gone to Algolia and got data. Like that data is not cached. It is so fast. It is ridiculous. Now, as I was saying, the actual forum thread page is still using Firebase, it's still binding directly to Firebase. But as you saw, it didn't take that long to load. We still get sort of the feature that if someone posts a question, an answer in here on a different browser, it'll pop up straight away. So that's really good for that screen. Some other things with that we've added. So we never had forum sidebars where we could have this. Here's some related questions to this particular question. So one thing we do is we get people to tag their posts with topics. So if it's EC2 related, we tag it with EC2. If it's S3, we tag it with S3. And then when people are on that page, they'll get, we're doing a query in the back end, or in the front end to Algolia to actually get something related to that. So that's why we've got these ones here. So this is an exam one. These actually don't come up that well, the exam ones, because the tags aren't granular enough, but it's not too bad. So we've got, someone said I passed my exam, 85%, and I tagged it probably with exam. And then we're just getting, someone passed their essay pro, and how do you pass your exam, and all that kind of stuff. So it just gives users a better feeling, a better experience. They can actually get, they can jump around the forums a little bit more naturally. They don't have to go through this sort of funky process of trying to get around. So we also grab related courses as well. So if someone sees, and this one's really cool, someone's actually posted, they were in a video on our school, and they've seen in the sidebar that there's some a discussion, a list of discussions, and then they're asking a question within that video, and we actually link their question to that video because it's contextual, right? So then when you see it in here, someone stumbles upon this, and they, because they were looking for how do I do something in S3, on Google it would come up, and they would get to here, and then they would see a, this relates to an actual lesson that we have on this thing, and that will actually, hopefully I own this because it, can do it, which is good. That'll actually take them into the video itself. So,
This is powered by
huh? No, this is not powered by Algolia. So,
blame CloudFront.
Yes. So as you can see here, relating to this particular video, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's people are asking about, and this is really useful in so many ways. People are commenting on this was really useful to me, or I didn't quite understand this, and then someone might clarify, and they get that information straight away. And it also allows us as the providers, the lecturers, and all that kind of stuff to, these lecturers can come into these videos and they can see all the discussions, and they can see what's bad and what's good, and re-record the videos with the content that people are asking for. So we think that